Hello and welcome to Ranks FC on YouTube. We're here to take a look at Barcelona, and after a 1-1 draw with Granada in the Camp Nou last night, and also a quite terrible loss to Bayern Munich in the Champions League, reports, Dean, are suggesting that Ronald Koeman might well be on his way out.
Yeah, I mean, probably no great surprise that the story is coming around on the back of some of Barcelona's performances and just the general state of the club in the past year or so. Of course, we're due a new crisis. This is the one that we're looking at right now. Koeman out. So, there's a report which is starting to go around saying from Johan Verheels on Twitter, they tell me that the moment they are clear about a replacement, they would dismiss Koeman. This can be today, tomorrow, next week, or in a fortnight, but the decision has been made. So there we go. There's the there's an opinion on when he could go. I mean, it's pretty vague, but it's a kind of being backed up in various places now that Koeman's running out of time, and I think most fans are pretty comfortable with that being the case, to be honest. But it's obviously going to depend on what happens next, because it's fine getting rid of him, but there's got to be a plan in place.
Yeah, and Sam, before we get on to some of the candidates being thrown around already, I mean, I suppose the big question is this what's needed at Barcelona? Now, obviously, the club is not in a great place. I think we can all agree on that front. A lot of this is not due to Ronald Koeman. A lot of this is due to deep financial mismanagement within the structures of the club. They've had to sell a lot of players. They've had to let Messi go because they weren't able to literally financially register him. They've had to let Griezmann go to try and get his wages off the books. It means that the squad is now far less cohesive, far less deep than perhaps you expect from any given Barcelona side. In its place, we've got this kind of influx of youth, which we're excited about. There's a big core here that there's a lot of players that you look at and go, yeah, this could be the next generation. And I suppose the question on that front is Koeman the man to guide this transition period?
I mean, it's choppy waters, isn't it, for sure? Last night was really, really, really bad. And it's obviously become a bit of a tipping point, hence the story coming out today. Look, I think had he not signed Luuk de Jong and sent Luuk de Jong on up front with Gerard Piqué and Ronald Araujo last night with a 3-man front line of towering 6'4" dudes, I think maybe we might be in a different situation. Yeah, it's just, I mean, we'd be in a different situation if it wasn't for that. But I think the fans saw last night, like, oh God, is this what he's going to do with our transition period? Like, everyone's aware that the squad depth isn't quite there. Everyone's aware that it's an unhappy place. Everyone has lowered their expectations in tune. I hope to a reasonable degree, but you never really know. The thing is, if you look at that last night, I think the fans are really, really concerned that this period in which there's going to be a bit rocky is going to be like that all the time. And I understand if you're concerned by that, because that was awful. It was awful to watch. It's Barcelona. It's Barcelona's PKs up front with Luuk de Jong. Come on.
54 crosses.
Come on.
Second most in Opta history. I saw that earlier. In terms of
crosses.
Barcelona.
That's exactly what Cruyff had in mind when he was starting the revolution.
The best bit was the best cross, aside from Memphis' one that led to the goal, was from Ronald Araujo himself, who went steaming down the wing as a winger at one point. He is the only bright spark in so many ways last night.
They did need a Messi replacement, and I think we found him.
Found him. Uruguayan Messi, as he's known in certain circles. I mean, it takes us on, Dean, to who might be in the frame should this change be enacted. And there's some interesting candidates being thrown about.
Yeah, there are. And obviously at this stage, it is all speculation, and there are various claims being made. I mean, there's one from journalist Gerard Romero. His claim is that Philip Cocu accompanies Conte, Pirlo and Xavi as the main contenders at this stage to become Barcelona coach. I've also seen betting odds from Paddy Power. Not saying they are particularly reliable, but here are the names that are listed, because it's worth mentioning them, because at some point some of these guys will come into the conversation. Mikel Arteta, Xavi, Roberto Martinez, Patrick Kluivert, Eric Ten Hag. Ten Hag actually is of interest to me. I
But
like that.
won't move until the end of the season. I would be
No, but I can see why that one's there. And then they got Luis Enrique, which
It seems unlikely.
seems unlikely. Yeah, let's leave it at that.
It might be a double job.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's like 9-10 names there. It's really tough, isn't it? Because the club is in such a transitional period. On one sense, you could see why they want an experienced head just to steady the waters, to just make sure that they don't fall off a cliff right now, because that's
Ronald Koeman.
yeah. Well, Koeman was I didn't have any faith in Koeman going into that job. I don't know about you guys. I think
thought
he did.
might be okay. I think it's important to remember that, Ronald Koeman is a Barcelona legend. That just because we've been, in the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a new kind of breed of how good Barcelona can possibly be. It's worth remembering that Ronald Koeman was the man who scored the goal that won Barcelona their first Champions League, who, he was part of the dream team. There was a lot of, players in here, and there's a lot of history here that people tend to forget when Koeman came in, purely because he's not quite, built into the same school as perhaps Pep was, right? So it's easy to forget that Koeman is, of Barcelona stock and a Barcelona legend. And that, I think at the time, it felt like, yes, it would need a shake-up. He was a man to kind of just oversee the choppy waters, as Sam said. But it doesn't feel like that anymore, because it feels like the waters
he once
got
played
worse.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin at right wing-back. I mean, we know who this man is.
Yeah, he's Ronald Koeman.
Here's the other issue, right? I mean, it's all very well us talking about this game right now on the back of a 1-1 draw with Granada, and judging on the back of that and saying that this is a tipping point. But it's not just here and now. I mean, let's go back a week to the way they were beaten by Bayern Munich. It's pretty humiliating that Barcelona can't even compete in a match like that. I don't think any of us expected them to win that game, but to know straight from the off that they weren't going to compete, not a situation we're used to. I know this isn't Barcelona of 8 years ago. I know that they've, cycles come and go, and you've got to accept that change happens, and you're not always going to be the best team in the world. But the other issue with Ronald Koeman is that Laporta wants Barcelona to be seen in a certain way, and he wants them to play with that Cruyff vision, with a 4-3-3. And at the moment, we're seeing Luc de Jong and Gerard Piqué up front. We're not seeing any of that Cruyffism, and that's a massive problem. And I understand all the pieces aren't there to probably play in that traditional Barca way. But, he also gave an interview during, I think it was in the international break, where he's trying to defend himself. And I feel like him and Laporta are already at loggerheads here, and he's not helping himself, basically. And there's only going to be one winner in a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because last year he kind of switched to that 3-5-2, and it actually made Barcelona a whole lot better. I mean, they were much better in that formation. They felt like they'd been able to cover up some of the weaknesses within the squad. They were able to find spaces for their best players to be able to play together. All of these things felt better. And then there was still this kind of backlash against it, because it's not the Barcelona way, which is, you can understandable, but also if it makes your team better, you have to sometimes accept that you have to be slightly more pragmatic than idealistic in terms of how you're playing. However, now it doesn't look better either way. And at that point, is there a change needed? And especially given that, losing Messi, losing Griezmann, losing this kind of sense of era that they've had, it does feel like this is a season where Barcelona need to just basically go back to basics, get back to where they want to be, and then build from the bottom up again. Because this is the nadir, right? This is the bottom of the pile. Playing Araujo, playing Piqué, playing Luc de Jong up front, slinging 54 crosses in against Granada. No offense, Sam. That is not where Barcelona need to be.
It's
if
ridiculous
they are to
strategy.
Kick on. It's ridiculous. You're absolutely right.
Granada aren't very good at that many things, but they are good at defending crosses. I know they eventually conceded one, but they defended 53. Like, stop crossing it. It's ridiculous. It was awful. I think the main concern here as well is like they didn't really lay a glove on Granada for 44 minutes, and when they did, it was from a set piece. It's like, is that the sum total of your offensive parts? Is that all you can genuinely muster? Surely not. Surely it isn't. You've got Frankie on the pitch, you've got Memphis on the pitch, you've got Yusuf Demir on the pitch. It's ridiculous. But I guess the question is, of the names that we've talked about here, or the names that Dean has read out, who can fit this bill? Like, who can sort of take them back to basics in a certain way, or take them back to this Barca way, but also have a kind of like the steadiness of the experienced head that allows them to kind of see over these choppy waters. I mean, I'm looking back through the list. Roberto Martinez? I don't know. It's not Xavi, is it? Because we don't know anything about him. It's not Cocu. It's not Pirlo.
Well, it's funny because on Romero, I'm only reading this on Twitter, so I haven't heard him say it firsthand, but apparently he says Pirlo is Laporta's favourite coach to replace Koeman. Based on what? Based on what?
On what prospect? Look, at least, look.
He played 4-4-2 all last season.
The thing with Xavi is that it's Xavi, right? So you have that kind of, and we've talked a bit on the podcast about the fact that maybe the era of the legend coach is starting to fade out.
But Xavi has clearly get sacked, it'll fade, yeah.
Well, Xavi has clearly, gone and done some work, right? He's clearly gone to Qatar. He's been there for a while now. He's set himself up. Yes, none of us are following Xavi's Al-Sadd as hard as perhaps we follow a lot of other managers around the world. But at least the one thing that we said with legend managers, the one thing that happened with Pirlo is that he was chucked in with absolutely no background, right? There was no years before. When Zidane took over at Real Madrid, he'd been working at Castilla. When Pep took over at Barcelona the first time, he'd been doing a lot of work within the academy, with the B team, with the youth teams, right? And all of that made sense in terms of philosophy. Chucking Pirlo in here doesn't make sense with that philosophy. Chucking Xavi in makes more sense. But I do think there's a point with the whole Xavi thing, is that he's a bit looking at this going, not yet. Absolutely no chance. Why would you want to?
Yeah. Also, how much of a factor is it that he was allied to a different presidential candidate back in the elections? So he was Victor Font's man. He was not Laporta's man. I don't know how important this is in the minutiae of Catalan Barca socio-politics, but like, he is literally somebody else's man. Like, does that rule him out completely from Laporta's perspective? Can he even go and take Xavi and offer him the job if Victor Font had it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he probably can. If I'm not mistaken, Laporta entering the race was actually quite a late change. If you remember rightly, it was originally penned as a 2-horse race, and suddenly Laporta came through like a steam train, which is fair enough. But like, I do think there's an element of that, which is, okay, this is different to maybe the terms on which I originally signed up. It was a Bartomeu versus Font race for so long. And then Laporta returned to the conversation. So there is maybe that element of things that isn't quite the same. But I do think that there's some strange names being thrown around here. Philip Cocu, yes, obviously played for Barcelona, but was sacked at Derby. Didn't do a particularly brilliant job there. Following in the heels of Frank Lampard, who we've obviously seen try and not do particularly well at the top level with Chelsea. You look at, Pirlo, as you say, and I'm not sure that that's the move for anybody. I don't think Xavi will take it. I think he is smart enough to realize that at the moment it feels a bit like a poison chalice, which leaves Conte. And
Conte's not going to take it, is he?
Well, I think
there's too many shenanigans going on.
I think
too
Conte
many shenanigans.
But I think the kind of flip on that is that Conte will not play the style that Laporta wants. If the whole thing is about going back to basics and trying to play 4-3-3 and trying to play in this Cruyffian vision, then you're not going to get that of Conte. Never played like that. No. That's not a thing that's going to happen. Which leads me to Marcelo Gallardo. And he's obviously at River Plate. Their season ends in January in Argentina. He's someone that I think is probably the only person I would go for at this point if I was Barcelona. You look what he came into River Plate as. They were absolutely god-awful when Gallardo took over. He's gone in and become the most successful coach in the club's history. That's a giant club. And I think sometimes in Europe, people are guilty of looking at the Argentinian teams and South American teams and not understanding quite how big as institutions they are, how important they are to the very fabric of life. This is not a job, I think, that would awe Marcelo Gallardo. I think he would be comfortable in it. Now, do I think it's the right move for him? Maybe not. Maybe he should come in Europe somewhere where he can take full control and not have all of that pressure on him, given what he's achieved in South America. But if it's available and Barcelona come looking, I think you take it if you're Gallardo, because I think he has the talent. I think he has the ability to bring youth players through. We've seen that at River. I think we've seen him be able to play a certain stylistic way and also mix it up. And you look at what happened. Do you remember? And the big one that stands out is, do you remember Enzo Perez having to go in goal in a Copa Libertadores game? They won. They won the game.
Yeah, Perez
they won
was great.
2-1. Like, that's ludicrous. Imagine just sticking a centre midfielder in goal in a Champions League game and being like, oh yeah, we still won. No, don't worry about it. And not just for 10 minutes at the end, Kyle Walker. This was for the full game, pretty much. So that's where we're at. And I do think that Gallardo, for me, stands out as the candidate who, if you're about to start a new era and you need to guide these waters into something that is new, you need to bring through an entire youth crop to try and play. And you get maybe this year where Barcelona fans aren't worried about it, because I think they're incredibly worried about it, but are at a point where winning the league title isn't the be all and end all. Now, every other season in the world, winning the title in La Liga is the be all and end all, right? You have to win the title. I don't think the Barcelona fans on the whole feel that, given the current situation, that is the absolute necessity this year. I would be giving him the 6 months. I'd let him see out the season at River Plate until January. And in that January window, I would bring him in and give him that 6 months to start to rebuild it. And then next summer, you go, right, here you go. We're relaying out the tools. We're sorting things out. We're moving in the right direction financially. This is where we go to from here.
Mate, you've made the best case for him out of anyone we can make for any manager. And it's still a massive, massive risk. That's the situation that Barca are in.
It doesn't feel like anyone sensible would take the job, right? That's that's where we're at.
Eric Ten Hag, great, not available. Conte wouldn't stand for it. All right, you have to start reaching.
Indeed. Right. Well, there we have it. There's no easy answers at Barcelona by the sound of things, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if they do enact this change. If they do,
maybe you'll cling on a few more days.
Well, maybe you'll cling on a few more months. It's very difficult to see how it's going. But we'll be keeping an eye on things at Barcelona and beyond here on Rax FC. Thanks for watching. We'll see you very soon. Take care. Peace.